Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric and Chad here with Iraq Veteran 8888. You guessed it, we've got another 5 guns video here for you today. And today's video, we're going to talk about the top 5 most accurate mil-serp rifles. We haven't done a ton of 5 guns videos. You guys have been pounding down our doors for these things, and we try to put out a 5 guns video about once a month or so. You know, we're not the Walmart of 5 guns channels. We don't put them out every like 2 days or anything like that. So we tend to kind of like think these things out and kind of implement them and put them together. We've been doing these 5 guns videos for quite a while, and a lot of folks out there are copying this concept, so we try not to beat a dead horse. We try to keep them special and post them about once a month, and that way they're a little more special, you know, when they come from us, I guess. But at least I'd like to think so. But the 5 guns videos are always fun. We love to talk about these types of things. So, top 5 most accurate military surplus rifles. The interesting thing about this concept is, and we've been thinking about this a good bit and trying to really dial it in. Chad and I both have shot, and we own, as you can probably see behind us, we own a lot of random military surplus rifles, and we've pretty much shot just about everything under the sun.
Pretty much. I mean, especially more modern military surplus. I mean, there's just a few guns that we've been talking about over the past few weeks that are really just kind of at the top of the list. I mean, I actually ordered a set of K31 diopter sights from Switzerland, and I'm like busting at the seams waiting on these things to come in so I can drop them on my Beechwood rifle and you know, see what that thing will do. But we got to talking about the M39s again, and then this concept just kind of came into play, and here's the video. So
absolutely. And this was a hard decision because there are so many rifles out there that we often kind of associate a personal relationship with because, okay, Grandpa might have fought in World War II and used an M1 Garand, so automatically you're going to like the M1 Garand. Is the M1 Garand the most accurate service rifle that's a semi-auto? I would dare to say no. It's definitely not. Is a Springfield 1903 the most accurate bolt-action surplus rifle? No, they're certainly not. So we're going to go down the line here, and these are in no particular order. But the one on the end down here is a Swedish Mauser. It's an M96. Awesome rifle. It's chambered in 6.5 by 55 millimeter. And the Swedish Mauser, whether it's an M38 or an N96, they will just flat out shoot anything.
They'll shoot the living daylights out, but you know, a lot of people attribute that to the 6.5 caliber itself. I mean, 6.5 is just a great projectile. You got a long bearing surface, long slender projectile, really cuts through the wind really well. And just gets on out there, and they have very flat trajectories. And we actually have 2 rifles on the table that are chambered in the same caliber, which both attribute very good accuracy. So.
You know, the Swedes had it right. When it comes to a military round, the 6.5 bullet, they got the weight just right, the long bearing surface, good ballistic coefficient, very flat shooting cartridge, very powerful. And I'll tell you what, you cannot go wrong with a 6.5 by 55 Swedish Mauser if you want a military rifle that's going to be accurate. Now, necessarily, I wouldn't say cheap to shoot. All of these guns that are on the table right now, you're going to be looking at about the same overall cost to shoot all of these guns. They're all, you know, I would say high power military you know, calibers. There's nothing like 30 cal or any of that in here. When it comes to these like vintage high power military rifle matches, you'll find that many of the rifles on this table come up in like the top 20 scores quite often. And there's a reason for that, because these guns are very accurate. The Swedish Mauser was one of the first Mausers that I actually took accuracy seriously in. I mean, I've got a Gewehr 98 back here, which almost made the cut. Man, I tell you, that Gewehr 98 is an awesome shooter.
Well, you know, I remember when we did the video on that thing several years back. I mean, that gun particularly was shooting.
It's right there if you just want to grab it. Heck, right there.
This gun was shooting like dime-sized groups at 100 yards.
Yeah.
And I mean, I liked it so much, I wound up picking one up at the Antique Arms Show in Vegas, and mine's refinished and everything, but it's a beautiful example. I mean, and for what I paid for, it's just really cool. But these have the nice old school roller coaster sights.
Oh yeah.
And we were thinking that Eric was missing the target. after firing a few shots, I'm like, something ain't right. But I mean, it stacked them in there, man. I mean, that's one accurate Mauser.
That gun almost made it into the mix. That's our wild card. All right, so we're getting out of order here. That was our wild card. I guess.
Was surprised when we were talking about this, and you mentioned that the Gewehr 98 wasn't in the mix. I'm like, what?
I think the Swedish Mauser tends to be more associated with accuracy. So moving down the line, that's a nice gun too.
This is a nice gun. It's got beautiful wood on it, but something interesting is these 3 little rings on here, and I can't help but wonder if those are like, marks for kills or something like that. I mean, during some kind of conflict, they took the empty brass case after they took a shot at a opposing soldier or whatever and went rink.
Well, maybe they shot a moose with it and they're counting their kills or something.
Maybe they're counting their kills. I mean, there's no telling. I mean, a lot of history there. You never know.
Well, the next gun in line, this is number 2, is the 1891 Argentine Mauser. And out of this lineup, this is a really interesting Mauser because this is one of the first Mausers ever. I mean, we're talking the first military contract of Mausers. I think the Belgians had a few guns that were made maybe prior to the 1891 Argentine, but this particular rifle is associated most often with pretty much the first Mauser rifle. I mean, for a long time, when someone thinks a Mauser rifle, this is what they thought of. Now, there's some things that they improved to the Mauser itself. Obviously, when you got into the Model 98, which is one of the most famous Mausers there are, this being a Model 96, which came around in 1896. This is 1891. So this is like 5 years prior to the Swedish Mauser. And I tell you what, these things will flat out shoot. They're 7.65 by 53. Belgian would be the technical caliber name, I believe, but use a 311 diameter bullet. Getting it out, I think the nominal bullet weight on these was like maybe 170 grains, I want to say.
Give or take.
Getting out of there gingerly like 2,500 feet per second, something like that. Not an incredibly powerful cartridge per se, but boy, these things will flat out shoot.
They do shoot well, and after Eric picked this one up, I bought one in a private party sale, and I paid a very reasonable amount of money for it, and the only detriment to that gun is in beautiful shape. I mean, even better condition than Eric's here, but the previous owner's father had engraved his Social Security number in the magazine here, and then also on the sight base back here. I mean, it's kind of an old school thing to do, but it's still a beautiful gun. It still shoots really, really well.
These rifles, in my opinion, are among the most elegant of Mauser rifles, and they
are
point
pretty.
very naturally. And boy, they will flat out shoot. I'm telling you, this one right here is a straight shooter. If you watch our video, we've actually have a video on this rifle. And man, that thing, Chad and I both we couldn't miss with it.
Pretty much.
It was just putting them right in there.
Well, one of my favorites, the M39.
Yep. So moving on to number 3, we've got a Finnish M39 right here. And the M39 is one of those guns that's really shrouded in a ton of interesting history. And I think that basically the Finnish military at the time was given lemons and they made lemonade with booze in it. Like they literally took the M9130 Russian service rifle and they literally like Pimp My Ride. Like they literally went and improved everything that they saw negative about it.
Well, one of the big things with the M39, the reason that it kind of came to be was because the Finnish military as a whole was wanting to standardize their arms. They were wanting to standardize their rifle. And, like the Civil Guard, they were using the M28s. The Finnish military was using like the older 27s, I believe, and whatnot. And they wanted to condense all those rifles down into one standard unit. And the M39 was born. And, during the Winter War, the Winter War started in 39. And these rifles, they were literally like 10 or 20 of them that were produced at the time that the Winter War started. So really like the M28s and M2830s were used during that entire conflict, and the M39s only saw use later on after the Winter War was over and World War II was kind of knocking on the doorstep pretty much.
There's a lot of random things that are falsely attributed to Simo Häyhä. He was a very famous marksman. I wouldn't use the term sniper per se, but he was a very good shot, and he was issued an M2830, and he liked the configuration of the gun with kind of the straight comb stock, the slightly shorter length of pull. He was a small statured fellow, and he racked up quite a few kills during the Winter War.
If I remember right, it was like 500 kills. I don't remember if that was total or if that was 500 kills with an M2830, and then there were several hundred more attributed to Asumi. you know, he skied around and
he was skiing around and popping them. So you know, this rifle in general, and not only Finnish military service rifles, but the M39 is definitely one of those firearms that to me is shrouded in mystique. They are highly collectible. They are very accurate, and this video is about accuracy. They have greatly improved sighting arrangement over a standard 9130. The barrels are actually aftermarket barrels that they had produced and then installed on the gun, so they're not standard Russian barrels. This is one of those guns that I like to consider a match rifle disguised as a military rifle. It literally, it's hard to say that because everyone sees like the Russian M9130s and they go, oh, it's Russian, it's a piece of junk. Some 9130s will shoot great. Some of them will shoot the size of a pie plate at 100 yards. They're not consistent.
If not worse.
But you got to think, they made like 28 million of the dang things.
Oh,
they made so many of them. There's like literally like 900 Mosins to every one of these.
I think the ratio is more like 362 to 1.
Oh, it's crazy.
You know,
Whatever it is, it's just insane to think that even, you know, I don't want to get off on this tangent too much, but during the Winter War, to think that each Finnish soldier was outnumbered by such a great amount. I mean, what was it, like 1 to 44 odds or something?
Like 1 to 45. I mean, the Russians, you know, had a huge force compared to the Finnish military at the time.
I know.
And, you know, they stood their ground, and I mean, they handed the Russians pretty much their ass.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing about the M39 is that it's a Mosin, and a lot of people go, oh, it's a Mosin, it's no good. Well,
it's not just a Mosin.
It's not just a Mosin, guys. The Finnish M39, if you ever pick one of these things up, they are very high quality rifles, and they really, really thought heavily about what they were going to do with this rifle. They really are the Cadillac of military surplus rifles and Mosins in general. I mean, you can't go wrong with a Finnish M39 if you want to pit the ace.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there that say that M39 is actually a little bit more desirable than a K31 in the accuracy department. I mean, there were, you know, over 500,000 K31s ever produced, but there were only just over 100,000 M39s produced. So not only is it a much more rare rifle in the big scheme of things, but I mean, this rifle is like the apex of the Mosin Nagant. I mean, if you want the top of the shelf Mosin Nagant rifle, that is it right there. Besides maybe like a 2876, like a finished target rifle.
Well, the Finns produced variants of the Mosin and built, you know, rifles off of Mosin actions as late as like the 70s. And I think that there's even a few sniper rifles that they're even using today that are built off of them, if I'm not mistaken. Hopefully, maybe some of you military guys in Finland can confirm or deny that for me. I don't want to talk too long about this, but Classic Firearms right now has a humongous batch of these M39s in right now. And if you've ever wanted one, now is definitely the time to jump on them because they're not getting any easier to get.
They're not really going to be commercially available anymore from like a big box retailer, if you will. No. I mean, they're going to be pretty much out there on the private market. The collection that Classic Firearms just procured over the past several months was the old Pat Burns collection, and it was like 14,000 rifles. Yeah. So they pretty much have almost
15% of the entire production ever made.
Pretty much. I mean, it is there, and they're still kind of sorting through those guns at this point. But you know, if you want one, now is really the time to get one.
Might not be a bad idea to grab one.
So,
all right. Well, next in line, moving on.
You can tell we're passionate about these guns.
I love the M39, and so does Chad. But moving on, I also love the K31. And you guys know that I am a fan of the K31. This funky little Swiss straight pull service rifle that is the apex of a long lineage of service rifles that started in 1889. So Schmidt-Rubin, you know, the original Schmidt-Rubin was a 12-shot. I actually have one. We're not going to go there and get it, but
I'm not reaching over there.
K31 is definitely the apex of the Schmidt-Rubin family of guns, and the K31 is not typically a Schmidt-Rubin. It is a much changed design. I mean, the bolt is much shorter. Yep. The action is shorter. The stock is shorter. It really is the most modern version of this rifle that the Swiss developed. It was in service from 1931 to 1958. It was replaced by the PE-57 and also an awesome gun. Those aren't really available here in any kind of large numbers. It's one of those guns that never really made it over here in any large numbers. But the K31 is a very, very accurate rifle. It fires a 7.5 by 55 millimeter cartridge. It's a 174 grain projectile. Moving around 2750,
I think
2700 or something like that. So it's getting down. They did make some changes to the workmanship and materials. Not really the workmanship, but the materials they used in the gun changed slightly over the years. They did change from walnut to beechwood in the stocks, around 45, 46 in that area there. Mainly just due to lack of natural resources. They ran out of walnut and switched to beechwood because it was more readily available. And many considered beechwood stocks to be a little stronger. They did change a little bit of the way that they were actually alloying the metal over the years. Some of the early K31s, they did have some failures of receivers, some failures of bolt bodies. So from a shooting perspective, the later one's probably a little bit better for shooting.
That's why you see on some of the earlier guns, like I've got a walnut stocked K31 from 42, and it has what's considered a force matched bolt. So probably the bolt was, re-arsenaled and whatnot. Or the gun was re-arsenaled and the bolt was replaced, maybe due to some stress fractures.
It might have cracked. There's no telling. But I very rarely have seen a beechwood stocked K31 with electro pencil bolt.
No, I mean the one that I have, actually, there's one back here with a matching bayonet and matching frog and scabbard, and it's just a standard gun. There's no force matching or anything like that, but the walnut ones are pretty though.
But in the accuracy department, guys, these things are highly accurate. They're still priced pretty reasonable. You can pick up actually the prices on K31s have gone up considerably.
A little bit.
3 or 4 years ago, you could pick one up for about maybe $289, $350 in that range, depending on.
Who are you kidding? I picked up my first one for $189.
Well, yeah, but that's been a while though.
It's been a while.
We're talking like recent times.
Recent times, you're talking $300.
If you go on Gunbroker right now and look at a K31, chances are most people that are selling them want about $500 for them. The thing about the ammunition is that they are still bringing in surplus ammunition, the GP11 variety. Right now, it's kind of dried out. There's not a lot of it out there, but they're expecting like a huge batch of it to come in the country pretty soon. So it is like we have good relationship with Switzerland, so we can import Swiss firearms. We can import their ammunition, their surplus ammo. So I don't ever see that. There's apparently still a lot of the dang ammo in Switzerland.
There's always like mixed. You always hear mixed things about the GP11. You hear that, there's no more available or it's dried up completely, and then all of a sudden there's a huge shipment that comes in. I mean, a whole shipping container comes in GP11. But one thing that I want to mention about the K31 is Eric has his nice sporter over there that was put together by Rock Solid Industries and Bluegrass Stocks and whatnot. They did a whole custom deal on that rifle, and I took that gun out and shot a ladder test with it. And just real quickly, a ladder test, you basically start with a low charge of powder and move up to a high charge of powder in very small increments. And you try to find like the smallest vertical spread.
Trying to find the sweet spot.
Trying to find the sweet spot in your hand load to tune to that rifle. Well, I went out and shot this ladder test. I mean, I shot probably 25 or 30 rounds, and we were trying to film a video on it, and they all literally at about 250 yards landed into a spot about 4 inches. So you're talking about an 8 grain range in powder landing into 4 inches, and we just settled on the top end because the last like 5 or 6 rounds that I fired literally stacked into the size of a quarter at 250 yards.
Yeah. Once we dialed in some ammo for that gun, Chad and I were printing some groups at like 400 meters, and I want to say that his best group was like
3 inches,
about 3.5 inches,
yeah, maybe 3.5 inches.
So I mean they're incredibly accurate, guys. K31. I mean, it goes without saying, if you're looking at accurate military surplus rifles, K31 definitely comes close to taking the cake. I would say between the M39 and the K31, it's a very close tie.
They're close pitted, but you know, a lot of people would probably prefer like the straight pull action of a K31 just for easier operation. But you know, M39, I mean, there's a lot of surplus ammo still out there for very reasonable. And as long as you clean the gun, you can use that ammo. I mean, with good results.
M39s are chambered in 7.62 by 54 rim. Just so you know, I didn't mention that earlier. But moving on, last but certainly not least, we've got a AG42. This is a Jungmann. It is a semi-auto 6.5 by 55 battle rifle. So this is out of our lineup. This is the first semi-auto. I wanted one semi-auto at a minimum to be in the video, and you know, I thought about the Garand. I thought about, you know, the FN49. I thought about, you know, all the different random semi-auto rifles that are out there, and part of my criteria for determining surplus is surplus. I figured I wanted it to be it had to be a former military rifle that was somewhat commonly available and that was not in use anymore by any military. So that was kind of my criteria. And I tell you what,
that gun shoots the living daylights
these things
out.
right here will flat out shoot.
I tell you what, Eric picked this gun up, and I picked up a Hakim, which is kind of the bigger brother of the Jungmann. It's chambered in 8mm, and the one I have is an Egyptian model, of course, and very, very nice. And you know, I've shot it just a little bit at range, and it shoots pretty dang well. The bore is exceptional, but man, this Jungmann though.
I'll tell you one thing right now. We did a range video on this exact rifle, and if you guys want to see how good this thing shoots, don't take our word for it. Go check out the video. We've got a full video on the Jungmann. We've got a full video we've done on both of our M39s that are in the vault here. And we've got a video on the 1891 Argentine and the Swedish Mauser. We've done a video on that. And of course, we've done videos, I believe, on every rifle on this table. So
pretty sure, yeah.
Don't take our word for it. Go check out the videos. But the Jungmann is a really, really awesome gun. It's one of the first, not the first, but one of the first direct gas impingement rifles. So it uses direct gas impingement. If you watch the review, you'll learn all the bells and whistles. I'm not going to go over that here. But it's a 10-round box. You can feed it with Mauser stripper clips like you would use in the Swede Mauser here. And I tell you, they're highly accurate. They're very soft shooting, very good recoil impulse. Good triggers on them. All these guns have excellent triggers.
Well, one of the reasons it has such a soft recoil impulse is because the barrel is ported up here, so it does have a muzzle brake, and the Hakim does as well. And you know, for that gun to tame the 8mm cartridge is pretty impressive. But I mean, being a 6.5, that gun right there, I would compare the recoil impulse of that to like an AR, like an A2. It's very, very, very soft shooting.
Oh, I know. And the direct gas impingement system as a whole generally is a very smooth recoiling system. And the way it operates, it's very gentle to shoot. Yep. And believe me, when it comes to this video, this was a very hard decision to make because there's so many guns that are so fun. I mean, like if you find a number 4 Mark II Irish contract with really nice, milled target sights and a good stock that's not all rotted out. Sure, some of the Enfields are excellent shooters.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to find one that's pretty much unissued because all those guns are shot out. I mean, none of the Enfields that I own headspace. I mean, I have to pretty much just hand load for those guns and keep the brass segregated and just use that brass in that gun just to shoot them.
I like the Enfields, but let's face it, a lot of the ones that are out on the surplus market were not cared for that well. No. I mean, those poor blokes I don't know if they just didn't issue them cleaning rods or if they didn't care. Or I don't know, but
we got lucky on a few of ours. I mean, a couple of ours are pretty nice, but there's a shop that's got a couple of really nice unissued guns. They've got a number 1 Mark III and a number 4 Mark II that are unissued and
in the wrap. Yeah, I mean, a rifle like that is probably $1,000. I mean,
easy.
So that's why a gun like the Enfield didn't make it into this group. Not that they aren't accurate necessarily, but that as a whole, as Enfields go, you're just not going to find one in the kind of condition that can deliver that sort of accuracy consistently.
And all of these guns here on the table are very well under $1,000. I mean, the Jungmann, $800, give or take. But every other gun is very well under the $1,000 range.
Oh God,
which is
I would say sub $500.
Sub $500 range,
easily. Yeah. I mean, you've got like the M96s. You can find these for between $400 and $500, depending on condition. Same thing on the 1891 Argentines. Really, all of these 4 guns are about the same price overall.
$350 to $400, give or take, unless you walk into a shop and find one for like $250 or maybe even less.
Like I did,
depending on how they. I mean, all the ones that we've ever bought, they've been about a couple $100.
Right.
So, oh man,
I love surplus rifles. You guys know, if you watch this channel, that we are definitely geeks when it comes to surplus guns. And these are our top 5. I didn't mean for this video to draw out or get long or anything, but we always like to take a moment to talk about vintage military rifles because they're so much fun to shoot. And not only when a rifle is not only fun to shoot, but also accurate as heck, that right there, that's when you've got a winner. So if you're looking for a winner, if you want to sort through the chaff and know exactly what to buy right out the gate to be happy, if you want an accurate military surplus rifle, here you go. We've done all the hard work for you. So maybe you guys can glean some information from this video. I promise you, if you buy any rifle you find on this table, anywhere you can find, if it's in good shape, with a good bore and the stock's in decent shape, the gun is going to be a good shooter, I promise.
Yep. Now, one thing, I mean, Eric did mention the like M1 Garand and 1903 and whatnot earlier. We've done videos on both of those rifles, and the reason they didn't really wind up in this lineup is because, for one, cost. I mean, an 03A3, I mean, at the low end, you're looking at $700-800, and they shoot exceptionally well. I mean, that one of Ray's that we took out and did a video on, I mean, that's probably one of the best bolt actions I've ever shot as far as accuracy is concerned, especially at longer range. I mean, we shot at 440, and we were just ringing the heck out of that gong.
They will deliver the goods.
But, I mean, I don't know. There's just something about these guns.
I think that there's a stigma that is associated with American military rifles, and I think a lot of it, you know, American military rifles in the surplus realm are overpriced and overrated.
Well, not even military guns. I mean, even like the old Winchesters, the old cowboy guns. I mean, you look at an old Winchester and they're beautiful and everything, but God almighty, I mean, $2,000-3,000.
They're overpriced and they're overrated because of the things that are associated with them. People also associate a great value with them. So, you know, my grandpa didn't use a K-31 to, you know, fight on the beaches in Normandy, right? My grandpa or your grandpa or whoever's grandpa, I'm not saying mine, but let's just say grandpa used an M1 Garand. So obviously that gun is worth more money to you as a collector or just as an enthusiast of firearms because of its association with American military history.
It has more personal significance, you know.
But there are a lot of guns that are superior to American rifles that cost a third of the money, and sometimes if you're just a shooter, like, you know, I have a lot of American surplus rifles. I like them. But let's face it, you know, a Martini Henry is a superior rifle to a Springfield trapdoor. A Springfield trapdoor costs 3 times as much as a Martini Henry. You know, a Jungmann is superior to the Garand. Hands down, is a better gun. May not be as quick to load. I mean, now the M-block style of clip that you put in M1 Garand is a very ingenious thing. But in terms of the accuracy of the gun, this is a superior gun to a Garand, and they cost less. So it's just one of those things.
And these guns are all matching. They're not going to be force matched or anything like that, like a Garand would be to get it back up to spec.
Exactly.
So, I mean, that's all original right there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, I certainly like American rifles. I shoot them quite often. I mean, I've got a P17 back here, a couple of 03s, a couple of Garands. I've got a Krag, which is an awesome gun. The Krag almost made it into this lineup. But I tell you what, we're going to be doing more videos on all kind of random surplus guns. Stay tuned, guys. Many more on the way. We could talk about this all day, but I won't bore you guys anymore. We'll let you get back to your day. We love doing these kind of videos. Thank you so much for watching. We really enjoy doing the 5 Guns videos. We only put out about 1 a month. I try not to bog you guys down with a ton of them because we have so many other things that we do as a channel that, you know, if you guys love the 5 Guns videos, let me know. I know you do because we get emails from y'all all the time about them. But stay tuned. We definitely have more 5 Guns videos on the way. That's pretty much it for this month. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you next time.
Oh yeah, take it easy.